What's up, Big 12 Nation? It is Tuesday night in America. That can mean only one thing. It is time for another installment of your favorite voice of college football network, Big 12 associated YouTube show. That's right. It's the Biggest 12 with me, your host, Clint Foster. Thanks so much for making us a part of your Tuesday night. Man alive, do I have a great show for y'all tonight with a veritable smorgasbord of experts and guests that we have to break down the week that was and the week that's fixing to be. But first, I need something from you, okay? You know what you got to do. And if you haven't done it already, shame on you and your house and your cow and everyone else. Like and subscribe at Big 12 Voice of College Football. There it is right there on the bottom of the screen. It's every Tuesday night we're hanging out here talking about Big 12 football. Could there be anything better? I say no. All right. And it's not just my show here on the Voice of College Football Network, and the Biggest 12 is on Tuesday nights. Of course, we've got your Thursday night show with Shane and Joey. We've got a lot more trivia and all kinds of crazy things that you want to be a part of. So you got to subscribe right there to the show. Never miss a show, right? And also subscribe to my personal YouTube channel at Clint Foster Comedy. You know, we're into TCU fans season. Okay. So, that may be a begrudging watch for some of y'all, but I'm having a lot of fun with it. And, there's plenty more stuff that maybe you didn't catch the newest edition of the Rivalry Draft. Go on, though, right now and check it out. It's a fun time. Also, follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55. And so that brings us to our show for this evening. Let me introduce my three, soon-to-be four guests on the show tonight. Here they are. We got Brownie in the house for Iowa State, John Grove for Kansas State, and Justin Hiles of Viva La Cats Pod talking Cincinnati football. Boys, how is your Tuesday treating you?
It's going.
I'm excited to be here. I also loved how you said experts and guests. I'm happily taking the guest role.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fill in the blank for whichever you feel applies to you the most. John, how you doing, brother?
Oh my goodness, no college football season would be possible without Clint Foster and his zany videos and also his Big 12 live videos, and I am honored once again to hop on. I suppose as the way Brownie said, as a guest in a way.
Well, many are saying this. Many are saying that college football is only bearable because of my videos. That's what many people are saying. Okay, so before we get into week 2, I want to hear one big takeaway from the week 1 action. It can be about your team. It can be about Big 12 more generally. But it's what is one thing that really stood out to you from week 1 action that you just got to share with the people? Brownie, you go first.
I guess my week 1 is definitely Houston losing to UNLV. I don't know if many of you follow Cyclone Twitter, but there is a very loving woman out of UNLV called UNLV Rebel Girl that ever since we got TJ Otzelberger has just been a thorn in our sides. So her team beating any Big 12 team just really grinds my gears. So Houston, what are you doing?
Houston has a problem, man. Yes, to borrow the cliche, and Justin, you'll love this. Houston has a big problem. I mean, I think that Willie Fritz is the hire of the future for sure. We talked about that UNLV game going into this last week on last week's show, and I was saying, hey, I'm a little concerned about this. Everyone was assuring me, no, Houston's got this in the bag. Yeesh, it's gonna be a rebuild. Cougars got a rebuild in front of them. Justin, what was your big takeaway from week 1?
I think at least if we're going to stay on the air side of the Bearcats, not the most impressive show, but a lot of excitement for some of the new transfers that are coming in. And on the offensive side of the ball, things seem to be rolling pretty well. Defensive side of the ball, I don't know. We have a wild card. I think there's a lot of things to shake out and figure out there. But overall, I think you can feel okay. But if I were to just tack on, Houston, bozo alert. Not going to be good this year. It is going to be real bad. That's all I have to say. Willie Fritz, yeah. I like Willie Fritz a lot. Like you said, I think they've got a lot of potential long-term. But, yeah, it's going to be rough sailing this year for sure. They're doing a full stripped to the bare planks rebuild there. So good luck to those guys.
Yeah, you are 100% right about that. John, what do you have? What was your big takeaway?
Strip to a bare planks. That's a saying I haven't heard in a long time. Anyways, I'll kind of go towards the route Justin said and kind of leaning towards his team. honestly, when you're playing against an FCS team, there's not too much to take away, but I was very impressed with the K-State defense. The Wildcats just made life miserable for UT Martin quarterback Kincaid Dent. Honestly, you take away one of the turnovers on special teams, which occurred deep in K-State's own territory as well, and a broken play that resulted in a 45-yard run. UT Martin probably wouldn't have any points on Saturday, but K-State, to its credit, they were at the best at its defensive line, where Brandon Mott, Toby Onsensami, and Travis Bates, all of which had one sack, and they got to the quarterback twice and showed up a lot of fun celebrations afterwards as well. So, getting that kind of pressure on the quarterback, it makes things easy for the rest of the defense, and I'm sure that's going to pay dividends moving forward in this football season.
All right, I love it. I love it. My big takeaway, and this was just confirmation to something that I already believed, and that is that this conference is wide stinking open this year. I mean, there are so many teams that can win this conference, and it is going to be a fun season. Oklahoma State, I think, is really good. I mean, the way they dealt with South Dakota State, that really impressed me. That's not just your regular old cupcake South Dakota State. That's a defending national champion right there. They're not going to be an easy out. I was really pleased. I mean, hey, I got the hat on. I'm a homer. I was really pleased with what I saw from TCU. A lot of really dumb penalties and stupid week one mistakes are what kept that game close. But the defense I was thrilled with overall. Josh Hoover looked accurate. A lot of potential from the skill positions. Need the offensive line to come together a little bit more, but we got a couple weeks for that to solve itself. I mean, and I'm not down on West Virginia either. West Virginia lost to a good Penn State team. I think they could make noise. Kansas State, Arizona, Utah obviously is a potential Big 12 pick. So many teams that can make noise this year, and it's going to be really exciting to watch. On the flip side, Texas Tech might be really bad, like really bad, okay? You talk about Houston, that ACU game, that Abilene Christian game, that they should have won in overtime. If I am a Tech fan, and I have a soft spot for Tech in my heart, I am slamming the panic button. This defense has not improved at all since before Cliff Kingsbury was the coach, right? And you got Washington State this week, who just dropped 70 on their opponent in week one. This is a big put up or shut up moment for Texas Tech, but we'll get there when we get there. Y'all have any rebuttals to any of that?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense too. I think that was one of the games that I was looking at as just, I don't know how they let it get that out of hand. But this is a thing that happens to everybody at some point, I think, in this conference. And, it could just be week one. So they could make a pretty big turnaround and just had to get a lot of jitters out for the first week. But I don't know. It's always that thing. Like, you never want to make a judgment based off of week one. Like, you can, but you can't. It depends on the quality of your opponent. And then I think, that'll take you to the next level. But FCS opponents, it's just, you got to take care of business, especially if you're in the Big 12.
A very reasonable take, Justin. But this is a Tuesday overreaction Tuesday YouTube show. We're gonna draw some conclusions, brother. Okay, from week one.
Draw the conclusion that Colorado is a complete bust. They are not making a bowl game. I'm saying it. Less than 6 wins.
Hey,
calling
your lips to God's ears.
Welcome back to the Big 12, boys.
Bailed out by the Zebras.
Yes. Okay. I was going to start us off with Cincinnati, but we'll wait and see if Steven can join us here. We'll do some of the other 11 a.m. games first. I've got 8 games for us to focus on for this week 2 slate. We're going to avoid talking about the TCU Long Islands and the less interesting games. But let's start out Kansas State going on the road to New Orleans. John says he's not going to this game. I think that's a little bit of an oversight on your part, John. But going down there to play Tulane, Kansas State a 10-point favorite in this game. What are y'all's thoughts on this one, John? I'll let you lead off as the resident Wildcat.
Well, the last time I went to New Orleans as well, it did not pan out too well for yours truly. It was a hot mess down there. The game itself in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama was also a don't want to talk about it. You're giving me PTSD again, Clint. Gosh dang it.
All about
all
it.
Right. But, Tulane is a well-coached team. They got John Summerall from Troy. We saw a John Summerall squad from squad last year in Manhattan, where K-State was able to handle business, but this is now a little bit of a different challenge, and they're facing a Tulane program that in just 2 years ago, led by Willie Fritz, marched into Manhattan and pulled off a giant upset. And for Tulane, they pitched a shout-out in week one, mainly in part to the sophomore defensive back, Rayshawn Pleasant, as well. He was responsible for putting an immediate stop to one of the opposing team's best drive of the day, coming up with a giant interception and returned it 100 yards for the score as well. He's going to be tasked to keep the Wildcats' passing attack in check as they look to bounce back after a slow start. Whereas for K-State, when you kind of talk, well, I already mentioned about the defense and pretty much how they were the main factor in winning the week one game. The offense didn't necessarily start its best. They only had one touchdown at the end of the first half. But DJ Gittens, it goes without saying, the Big 12 has some of the best running backs in college football. DJ Gittens, he put together an impressive week one performance. He compiled 123 yards, 13 attempts, despite operating on a limited role as well due to an injury sustained in spring ball. But he averaged an unreal 9.5 yards per carry as well. So I'd say when you're kind of looking at the two teams, you're going to see a lot more coming out of a playbook. Whereas what you saw with week one, I think Tulane's got several weapons that they can try and utilize in different ways. And I think the same thing applies to K-State. But it's also going to be very interesting to see how the Wildcats are able to handle kind of the adversity. It's going to be Avery Johnson's first road game in New Orleans as well. On top of that, it's going to be a little bit of a chip on the shoulder game for several of the guys that dealt with the K-State loss to Tulane in 2022. So several storylines here, there. Of course, K-State, if they're able to pull off a win over Tulane, who's currently receiving votes in the AP Top 25, that's going to really favor their momentum heading into the following weekend when they host Arizona on a Friday night. Whereas for Tulane, if you're able to pull off a big upset over K-State, chances are you could likely kind of see yourself as the king of the group of five ranks when the playoff comes again. So it's going to be a very intriguing game. It's going to be a national kickoff as well. I'm very excited to see what happens.
All right. Brownie, you want to take it away about the hated Wildcats? Did they take care of business in New Orleans?
I mean, as much as I hate agreeing with Wildcats, I will happily accept that they are going to roll Tulane.
Yeah, Dishfish agrees. Tulane lost a ton. K-State and Goldilocks quarterback Johnson roll. Yeah, I mean, I think John, you hit the nail on the head talking about there's guys who remember that loss to Tulane at home, right? And what that meant. This isn't one that you're going to let slip away a second time.
Yeah, and for Dishfish, he mentioned Goldilocks. I have way too many nicknames. Golden Locks, the Maze Main. I mean, you could go on as far as you possibly can. I broadcasted the first game for our student radio station. I had to come up with several nicknames for several of the guys just to make it kind of sound like it sounded really cool up a broadcast. So I got like 3 or 5 nicknames already in there. But yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with Dishfish as well. Tulane brought several key guys in the transfer portal, and I thought they were going to have Ty Thompson, the transfer from Oregon, start in week one, but no, a redshirt sophomore, or I believe a redshirt for that matter, he was able to get the start for Tulane, but nonetheless looked pretty impressive as well. So it's going to be interesting because and on top of that, you're also looking at a K-State squad that's kind of getting some fresh blood in there. We saw a lot of guys play in week one, kind of in mop duty against GT Martin as well. So a lot of new faces all around.
All right, Justin, you got any hot takes on this game?
I don't know. I mean, if everybody else is going to take that, not to play the heel, but I think Tulane, with our personal experience as Cincinnati, playing Tulane enough. Granted, it's not Willie Fritz Tulane anymore, not top of G5 Tulane anymore, but I think they're a team that people are going to sleep on. It might surprise you. Do I think that Tulane wins this game? No. Do I think they cover? Probably. I think it's going to be a closer game than people expect it to be. They're going to be hovering. It's going to be within 2 scores for sure. That's where I see it. If Kansas State blows them out. Good for Kansas State. It looks good for the rest of the Big 12. But, given that they have Arizona coming up too, I don't think that this is going to be a game that they're going to look over, but take that into consideration as well. You got a really strong Arizona squad who's popping off already. And that's going to turn a lot of heads and probably put some focus for Kansas State coming up. So might be a game that gets a little tight, but I think Kansas State still comes out on top.
Yeah, I could see a world where Tulane covers, but yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think this is one that you look ahead of. If you hadn't lost to Tulane 2 years ago, maybe, right?
Fair.
But that loss in the rearview mirror, that's a bad taste that you want to get out of your mouth. It should be a fun atmosphere, and I mean, God bless all the Wildcats who get to make that trip down there, and hopefully they make it back alive from New Orleans. So Justin, we got you talking already. Let's talk about a game that I am very fascinated by, and I was like, hey, I got to have Cincinnati on at least 1 week. Right, this is the week I definitely want to do it for this Pittsburgh game. Playing for that the riverboat. What do you call that thing that makes it go forward?
The paddle wheel. The paddle wheel.
Yeah, the paddle wheel thing. One of the coolest trophies in college football. I'll see if I can find a picture of it and throw it up on the screen. But what are we thinking about this game? Cincinnati 2-point favorites at home against Pittsburgh. I do believe y'all beat them last year. Is that right? Okay. Correct. So, I mean, are you liking the Bearcats in this one? That Townsend game, a little bit close for comfort for an FCS game. 18-point win, 38-20. Where's your heart and where's your head at, Justin?
Heart for sure says that this game is going to be Bearcats. It's going to be tight. Head says this could go any way, left, sideways, up, down. I mean, it could be pretty, it could be ugly. And I think it could go for both Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. I think, Pitt last year, they had a man made of molasses at quarterback, and that was just a completely dysfunctional back half for Pittsburgh. I think this year already what you're seeing with their squad, Holstein looks solid. Again, it's against Kent State for their new quarterback back there, but I think he looks pretty good. He was 30 for 40 in this past week, and 3 touchdowns to an interception, over 300 yards. Looked pretty good. As well, Desmond Reed. I think the rushing game, knowing Narduzzi and the way he sets everything up, it could be interesting. I think it's going to be a really tight knit, just duking it out game. It's going to go probably possession for possession. I would expect to probably see a lot of punting in this game, just given that I think both defenses are going to try to really get locked down. Of course, as we mentioned before the show started, Dante Corleone is officially back. The Godfather is officially back for the Bearcats. That's huge, huge news for those of you who don't know. This is a guy who is All-American level, who unfortunately was diagnosed with some blood clots in his lungs in the off season back in about June or July. And so now is officially cleared to play, and he will be starting for the Bearcats against Pittsburgh, which is great because, on the defensive side of the ball, he is the keystone to everything. And just the way that the Bearcats are able to create pressure and, force quicker snaps all comes around Dante getting to the house. And so having him back, I think, is going to be really, really good for us. The question is, can they be consistent? Can they keep the DBs from getting burned? Can they get all the other pieces to work around him? But hopefully he can create enough focus to allow the Bearcats to kind of get in and move around into the other spaces and hopefully create some chaos that the defense desperately needs, which it unfortunately was not able to create against Towson. But as far as the offensive side of the ball goes, I think it's going to be really interesting. Sorsby looks great. I mean, I think this is a guy that we're going to talk about, not just as Bearcats fans, but as Big 12 fans. Towards the end of the season, he has an elite arm, which I think is definitely flying under the radar right now. He looked great at Indiana last year. He looks great now, and I think he's just a plug-and-play guy for this offense. And so between that and some of your receivers, I think there's some potential here. But that 2 is scary. That's a classic Vegas number. That 2 at home is just it could go either way. So I don't know. I'm not confident, but I feel good, if that makes sense.
Sure. Sure. What do the rest of y'all think about this game?
Oh man, this is going to be an offensive, fire-powered kind of game, and I say that in the most courtesy way possible because Brandon Sorsby, he is legit. 303 yards, 2 scores. He ran the ball 5 times, 5 yards and 2 touchdowns as well. He's a pretty big guy, but Cincinnati's going to have to lean on throughout the rest of the season. Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they kind of also have a guy and Eli Holston. He carried the load a little bit a week ago, completing 30 passes, 330 yards there. But it's Kent State at home. You're going to Cincinnati. You're going to have to suffer for all the fans eating all the Skyline chili. Both teams are going to be honestly, I'd consider as a fork in the road kind of game in which the season can go one way or another for one of these two teams. But I do think Cincinnati's going to pull this off. I think they have the edge. I think they have a better team overall. They're also playing at home as well, which will really help them as well.
I gotta agree with all that. Just because I gotta side not only with Cincinnati but my Bash Bros out in West Virginia. Pitt, I'm sorry guys, but I just can't take Pitt in this situation. I think from past experience with Iowa State, honestly, favor of 2 points really tells you that they're not considering home field an advantage. I will say, visiting Cincinnati last year during the Iowa State game, during your guys' homecoming, I actually had chills during most of that game until we blew you out by halftime. And then after that, you know, the vibe kind of went downhill for you. But I'm not gonna lie, like Cincy has a vibe, and I love it. So only being a 2-point favorite, 2.5-point favorite at home is absolutely wild to me. With you know, Pitt just kind of, I don't know, they seem on and off again in recent years. So I can't really say, yeah, let's go that boat. So
yeah, it's a tough situation. It really is. Like, you don't know what you're going to get with this. And I think looking based on where Pitt was last year, where we were last year, both teams, bit of a rough season, to say the least. But I think both teams are really, they both have a chip on their shoulder, and they're both looking to prove something in this game. And both desperately need this win, you know, going into conference play. I think Cincinnati probably even more so, just looking at the Big 12 slate. We have an easier schedule, you know, ahead of us than pretty much anybody in the Big 12. But, you know, nothing's a given, and you're going to try to take as many wins as you can, especially when it's against a rival and at home. And after you did it last year, why not do it again with an even better and stronger squad? So,
oh, absolutely. Hey, this is an Eat It Pitt podcast. Okay, yeah, we are never picking Pitt on this show.
I like
Hammer Cincinnati, take the points. Okay, listen, you said it. Dante Corleone's back in the mix. That's going to be a massive boost for the Cincinnati defense. Sorsby, I mean, my gosh, I cannot think of a better year for a conference quarterback wise. I mean, there are so many good quarterbacks in this conference from top to bottom. It's insane, right? And yes, you talk about Cincinnati's schedule. This is when you want to be making some hay as the Bearcats, right? Getting these early wins, getting yourself on a little bit of a roll. Because, brother, if you're not on a roll by the time November comes around, it's going to be a tough November.
I'm worried, man. That West Virginia game, I thought for sure was a lock after the Penn State loss, but then Neil Brown shaved the goatee off, and now I know it's business. So they're going to get back to winning, and we need to take care of it, because by the time that game comes around, it hopefully it won't be ugly, but we'll see.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. No, November is going to be a challenge. I mean, you got West Virginia, Iowa State, Kansas State, TCU back to back to back to back. And Iowa State and Kansas State are on the road. Those are not fun places to go and play.
Especially in November.
Yeah, especially in November. My God. So, you got to get this one. There are no what ifs. We're going to try. No. Have to win this one. And I like Cincinnati at home to win by more than 2. It is. You're totally right. They're totally not even taking home field into account. That's just crazy. All right, let's look at another game that it's shocking it's not a rivalry game. How has this game not been played in like 40 years or however long it's been? Arkansas and Oklahoma State insanely close to each other. but virtually no history with Arkansas being a part of the Southwest Conference and Oklahoma State being in the old Big Eight. Here we go. Cowboys and Ollie Gordon hopefully driving safely to the stadium for this 11 a.m. game, hosting the Arkansas Razorbacks. 7.5-point favorites. I like the Pokes in this one. I don't know about the Pokes covering, but what are y'all's thoughts? How do you think this one plays out?
I mean, I'm taking Oklahoma State. Are they going to win by a touchdown? I don't know, man. I mean, Alex Bowman has been in this league for like what, 20 years now? So like I feel like Bowman is kind of, I don't know, taken over definitely the starting role, especially last year. You know, they were rolling with 3 quarterbacks for what, like 3/4 of that season. They were just constantly rotating them through. So at least I'm glad that Bowman has at least gotten the go-ahead start over the others. I don't know. Arkansas is always tough. Like every time I watch Arkansas, I always feel like they're either blowing somebody out or it's within a score. And I did watch like their highlights from the Arkansas Pine Bluff game where, oh shoot, their quarterback literally just made like a Seneca Wallace run, basically, where it looked like I was playing on freshman level difficulty on College Football 25 with a 99 speed quarterback. Like, how does that even happen to begin with? So, I'm gonna say Okie State does pull this one off, but I can genuinely see it coming down to either like a last second field goal, either make or miss, or it's gonna come down to overtime, where it's gonna be into the 2-point conversions and somebody's gonna mess up.
John, what do you think about the chances of the Pokes in the 19th grader here?
Oh my gosh, that guy needs a job.
Legit. Oh my
grief. Oh my gosh. Well, I am a little bit surprised that these two teams have not played more recently. I mean, given their geographical ties, as you mentioned, Clem, but this seems like a make it or break it year for Sam Pittman at Arkansas. Of course, he's on the hot seat. He's a well-liked coach at Arkansas as well, but he's been kind of on the struggle bus lately. Now, they look very impressive against an FCS squad for that matter, but this is going to be it's a whole different environment. Much like what we're seeing with all these Big 12 teams. I mean, I believe 12 of them played FCS opponents, if I'm not mistaken, last week in week 1. So it's going to be a massive week in terms of ultimate overall implications. And that'll definitely be the case for Oklahoma State. You know, looking at the schedule for the Cowboys, it is very top heavy so far with South Dakota State, Arkansas. You got Utah and K-State to start off conference play. And really, a lot of people were kind of heading into the South Dakota State game last week and thinking, oh, my goodness, this has South Dakota State could keep this close. Oklahoma State took care of them. Their offensive line, one of the most loaded we've seen in all of college football. Alan Bowman is back. He looked pretty impressive, but not as impressive as Ollie Gordon is on the ground as well. I'd say you got several of those factors. Plus, it's at home. And honestly, Arkansas, given kind of a geographical ties right there, Clint, I think that's going to be kind of the Bedlam game for this year. Kind of, you have to try and find a replacement for Bedlam. I think Arkansas kind of, to a lesser degree, fills in some of the hype and motivation there. I'm going to say it's a big win for the Big 12. I think the Cowboys, they challenged themselves a little bit with South Dakota State, but I think they're going to have I think they'll be getting it done over the Razorbacks in Stillwater.
What do you think, Justin?
It's tough. I think Oklahoma State can find a way to cover in this one, quite honestly. You know, Arkansas looks solid. But I think with OK State's line, I think the way that they've been set up, I think they're in a strong position to try to make a really good push. And, you know, we've had this conversation so many times between so many different people throughout the Big 12 offseason. It's, again, that wide openness, that sort of parity that is very prevalent. I think Oklahoma State, now that Oklahoma and Texas are gone, really wants to be one of those teams, you know, fill in with Kansas State that wants to be at the top and wants to start to make a run. And put their stamp on some things. And I think they've got enough of a squad right now that this is a game that they're going to be looking to not take care of business, but get the win and move on. And I think it's not going to be an easy one by any means, but they definitely need this if, they want to strengthen their campaign for later in the year and prove that they can play in some, tough games. And I think this is definitely going to be one of them. Arkansas is never a given. We played Arkansas, recently as well. And that was a tough game. Unfortunately, did not run our way. It was a very close game, but they're always a tough out every single year. So I'd still give Oklahoma State the edge. I think they would be able to cover in this game, but it'd be tight. Oh, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
I'm buying stock in Oklahoma State. I mean, if I'm a Pokes fan, there's 2 home games that I am really looking forward to this year. One is Utah, right, on September 21st, obviously, and the other is this Arkansas game. I think that the Boone Pickens Stadium is going to be rocking. I think that is the toughest place to play in all of Big 12. I mean, just because the sheer uncomfortability factor, the sidelines are so narrow. I don't know that it's necessarily the best atmosphere, if that makes sense, but it is the hardest place to play. You picking up what I'm putting down? Mm-hmm. So, and also Oklahoma State, I'm putting a lot more stock into the way they performed against their FCS opponent than Arkansas. South Dakota State impresses me a great deal more than Arkansas Pine Bluff by a country mile. Okay. And Oklahoma State has a ton of returning production. This team is experienced. I mean, God, we talk about Alan Bowman, right? He's 30 years old. But they've got returners all up and down this team. And I think that this is the perfect type of game where they can ride Ollie Gordon and just get a 10-point win. And there you go. Bob's your uncle, right? I think Oklahoma State.
You really want to ride along with Ollie Gordon, though?
Well, yeah. It's a roll of the dice every time. Okay. But you go where the wind's taking you. All right. With that, let's talk about the game that the internet lovingly refers to as El Assico. We are talking about the Cyhawk game, Iowa State at Iowa, where they're waving at the kids in the hospital. Iowa's a 2.5-point favorite. Let me tell you something, Brownie, before I even let you go here and talk about this. I always root for Iowa State in this game. Last year, I finally was like, they're going to win it. I'm picking Iowa State to win this game in my Pick'em League. They disappointed me again. Iowa, for some reason, always wins this game, no matter how terrible their offense is, no matter how good of a year Iowa State has. Iowa State worried me a little bit with that showing against North Dakota. That was who y'all play, right? North Dakota. It concerned me a little bit. Am I right to be concerned? Are the Cyclones going to pull this off on the road? Where's your head at?
All right, so a lot of things to unpack here. So first thing first about Iowa State always getting our butts kicked by Iowa. You're not wrong. Matt Campbell is, I think, won and a lot of losses against Kirk Ferentz. The one win that we did have was Gamblegate, so that was exciting. But the thing that I always tell people is Matt Campbell always tries to out Iowa. You're not going to out Iowa. I'm sorry, but Matt Campbell's entire strategy has always been, we're going to win in the margins. We're going to take care of business. We're going to win in the margins, whether it be special teams, third down conversions, third down stops, fourth downs, field goal, everything. The problem is when you go to Kinnick Stadium, you're not going to win in the margins. It's a completely different beast. Cyhawk game has always been like that. Doesn't matter if you're in Jack Trice or Kinnick Stadium. Home field advantage really doesn't exist for either team, I believe. A little bit more probably at Kinnick than it does at JTS. But last year was an absolute disappointment. Not only because I got to miss the home game, but because we lost too. But, I have a lot of faith this year. Our win against North Dakota had some serious blue ball syndrome. The first possession that we had, we scored in 2 plays. Okay. We thought Taylor Mouser is the answer. We're going full-blown air raid. Like, we're going to give Mike Leach the well-deserved praise that he rightfully earned. We were going to put up like 600 passing yards against North Dakota and just like prep for Iowa, right? But literally after that 75-yard drive that lasted a total of 17 seconds, Iowa Stated. And that was, we went back to vanilla. We punted, I think, on 2 consecutive possessions. North Dakota had 2 punts, and then the infamous 12.5-minute drive happened with North Dakota. Every single play was a run play. Every single play just ate up clock. And I'm not going to lie, the stadium all of a sudden felt like just a giant social house. Nobody was really paying attention to the game that closely. We were all screaming at our defense to actually do stuff, and they just weren't converting on thirds. And I mean, 23 plays, 88 yards, 12 minutes and 24 seconds of possession is absolutely ridiculous. If I'm going by the metrics of the yards per play, it killed North Dakota, right? But that time of possession really hammered the morality and everything that Iowa State fans had after that first drive. We turned around, and in 2 minutes, I think it was like 6 or 7 plays, we scored another touchdown. And it was just like, okay, where was this offense the entire time? And then we just went straight back into good old Iowa State fashion of vanilling week 1. My heart and my mind is telling me pick Iowa State no matter what in this game. I think Tim Lester against Illinois State, he put up 40. Cade McNamara looked good, but I'm still not sold on Cade because it seems like he only really performs well against defenses that don't know what a play action is. Iowa is probably going to beat us on the offensive line side. I know that we are missing a lot of our linebackers. Caleb Bacon just got released today that he had surgery. What extent the surgery was, nobody knows, because in Matt Campbell's terms, if he says that he's optimistic he's coming back by the end of the year, it means he's dead. So, we don't really rely on those stats or anything like that. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think. 2 new OCs. Mouser has obviously been around the Iowa State staff, so he knows the importance of this game. A lot of the players know the importance of this game. I would say that this is probably the biggest one circled on our calendar outside of the Farmageddon game that happens, that Big 12 decided to rob us here coming up, which I am still peeved about.
Stupid. Absurd.
But, I'm just hoping that the teams show up. I know what's the actual over under for this game? 35.5. Is it still at 35.5?
Double check that.
Slam the under if it is. I personally do not. There are 2 ways that Cyhawk goes. It's either 80 total points or 10 total points.
35.
And I have a feeling that it's going to be closer to the lower end, just because Iowa's offense is going to struggle, and I think Iowa State's offense is going to struggle until Taylor Mouser gets the green light to switch over to air raid.
All right, I love it. John, Justin, what are y'all thinking?
Oh, man. I mean, thank you for throwing that Farmageddon mention out there. That's the only blunder Brett Yormark had as a commissioner so far.
I agree.
Come on, give me a break. And Clint just disappeared. What's going on right now? All right.
Clint disappeared about as fast as Farmageddon did under Brett.
This is our show.
My thermostat's not working, so I'm trying to get it turned back on.
Yes.
He's getting a little toasty.
I think Iowa State, they need to open things up, and they need to open things up far more earlier than anticipated, because we saw what happened last year in Farmageddon late in the season when Iowa State just completely torched K-State's defensive line. They torched the defensive secondary. They're going to have to kind of find the success more towards the secondary. And Rocco, back to his respect, to his credit, he has his weapons in Jalen Knowles and Jaden Huggins as well. So the success in the passing game should open things up. On top of that, you also got Abu Sama. Brownie,
who just scored again.
Yeah, he just scored again.
Oh, man.
Oh, apparently I made him rage quit.
What did you do, Brownie?
I don't know.
Hey, you mentioned
I bring up
Abu
Abu Sama's story, and all of a sudden it just brings fear into everybody.
Yeah, man. I want Iowa State to win this game so bad, but it's just like, it's one of those things that's just so hard to overcome recent history in my mind, and the idea of,
it's
like
bad.
You said, Matt Campbell trying to out Iowa, right? Is that what we're going to see again? I think there's so much to be excited about with Iowa State this year. Iowa State's still a young team, but like Oklahoma State has returned so much production. I mean, the future is stinking bright, but as far as this week against Iowa, yeah, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be El Assico. It's going to be struggling for points.
Does it help your decision if I say that Iowa State has won the last 3 of 5 games at Kinnick Stadium?
Oh, well, that does. That does give me some. That does give me some solace. John, we thought the Abu Sama comment took you out.
that was such crazy timing. I had no idea.
Took him out like Abu Sama took out their defense.
My apologies. The Wi-Fi I'm currently in right now is kind of unstable. So if I get bounced out, it's not because I got mad of another Abu Sama comment. I ran into many of those comments during the off season, and on one hand, it's funny, but it also hurts my Purple Heart a little bit. But, oh my gosh.
We've been the laughing joke for so many years. It's great to finally have one up. Just saying.
Yeah. You got to take them where you can get them, man.
You got to capitalize on your opportunities, all right? I'm not against that whatsoever. Man, I mean, well, I guess, wait, are you guys, did I leave off anything, or?
You were at the Abu Sama part, and then you went bye-bye.
How useful is he so far in the receiving game, Brownie? I just got to know a little bit.
Honestly, he's not been overly effective. I know in practices and stuff like that, they've been trying to get like those halfback swings out and stuff like that, but most of the receptions from what our first game showed was coming from Carson Hansen. Okay. Carson Hansen is still a viable back. I would say he's not quite up to Abu's level yet, but I do think that if you looked at our depth chart with the 17 oars, there probably could have been an 18th one there if something went right in the past couple of weeks.
All right. Just wanted to. I didn't want to hack the show or anything. I just kind of wanted to know.
He's had one reception, if that helps you.
There you go. So I suppose they'll likely lean towards Jalen Nolan, Jaden Huggins. They need to get them out early, too, because of what we saw early on with Iowa and their offense against Illinois State. They haven't started off too hot. But then when they pick things up in the second half, then that's a whole different ball game there. But I don't know. I mean, I love Brownie, and I love Iowa State. I mean, I'm one of those fans that kind of respects the Everland Grant institution. I don't know. He struggles against Iowa, though. Matt Campbell, he's 1 of 6 against Iowa. Right? I don't know. The Hawkeyes have a little more veteran leadership on both sides of the ball. I'm not 100% certain. I think my conscience is getting to the best of me, but not tonight. I'm going to Iowa State.
Heck yeah. Purple Kitty's coming through.
I'm gonna be rooting for him. I'm gonna be rooting for him, man. Justin, do you think they can pull it off?
No.
Oh, Skyline Chili sucks.
Here we go. Here we go. Just put some dirt on the chili, huh? No, like, I don't know. I think I would feel again. So since it's a Tuesday night and we're making drastic motions based off of week 1. If you let up a 12-minute drive to an FCS school, even Iowa can score on that. I think that's one of the things that I would be a little bit concerned about is just the effectiveness of that defense. Granted, it's probably going to be cleaned up. If anything, this past week would have been probably Iowa State's look over week to the Cyhawk game, which makes a lot of sense. But I think I would be a little bit concerned about going into Iowa. I think if this was at home, I'd probably give Iowa State the edge. But considering it's on the road, and Iowa's going to Iowa, they're going to just absolutely bully you on defense. I think this is going to be another punt fest. And I think that this game is just going to be ugly in the way that it always should be, because that's what we watch it for. And quite honestly, I think it's going to be close. I wouldn't even be surprised if Iowa State covers here, but I really just don't see how Iowa State comes out on top of Iowa in this game, given what we've seen thus far. I think it's going to be another ugly game, but I think it's going to be like a one score, like not even one score, like a 1-point game. I think this is going to be like a game-winning kick that happens, 2 minutes into the third quarter kind of situation. So we'll see how it goes, but I think I would give Iowa State the edge here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and we definitely do know that the defense is going to be changing. We did lose Caleb Bacon and stuff like that. We've also been hearing from Matt Campbell that we are going to be switching to a 4-down defense. We did not show that at all against North Dakota. Don't ask me why, especially during that 12-minute drive. I just know that it's allegedly coming.
A lot of allegedlys.
Hey, man. With Matt Campbell, you don't know anything until you see it.
That's true.
That is very much true.
Very,
I can attest to that.
Speaking of things we're waiting to see, Colorado.
Losing.
Right? Waiting to see. Colorado, they farted around with North Dakota State. I really thought North Dakota State was going to win that game. I picked the Bison last week. Here we go. They're at Nebraska. Nebraska's hot garbage, too. They beat Nebraska at home last season. Can they do it again? Do y'all have any faith in the Buffs here?
No.
I'm rooting for the Meteor. I will never pick Nebraska or Colorado, ever.
I don't really have a dog in the fight against like Nebraska. I don't have that like really like Plains Midwestern type of like rivalry that like an Iowa State or Kansas State might have, being so close in proximity to them. But I don't know. I speak for, I think, pretty much 95% of the college football base when I say that watching Colorado lose so we don't have to get Deion Sanders and Colorado shoved down our throats every week and just to keep them off of the airways a little bit more would honestly be such a relief. This team is decent. They're not bad. They're decent. And this is the thing that I wanted to overreact to really fast. But when you look at Colorado and you look at North Dakota State, like North Dakota State is a great school. They are an FCS powerhouse. They are a heavy hitter. They are a tough out no matter who you're playing when it's happening. Like they are going to be a tough game. But at the end of the day, I just don't see how this game like really goes in either team's favor. I think, again, it's going to be another one of those close games that'll probably be just come down like a game-winning kick. But given that it's at Nebraska, given the environment and given the pressure that's going to be on them, I think it's going to get ugly fast here for Colorado. I think the schedule is going to get the best of them pretty quick, and we're going to be talking about a different Sanders at the end of the year. And it's going to be if the QB can make it to the draft and get like all the way up through to, the top round. But I don't think the story's going to be Deion anymore. I think it's going to be his boy.
And Dishfish agrees with you here. Brownie, you already said there's no way you're picking Nebraska.
Meteor, man.
Where do you fall?
Meteor, man. I'm waiting for the Meteor to hit Memorial Stadium. That's what I'm rooting for here. If I do have to make a pick, I am, unfortunately, picking Nebraska. I do think that Colorado is extremely overrated. I actually, in one of our pick'ems, had Colorado only winning 5 games this whole season. So I am sticking by that. That they were supposed to lose to North Dakota State, which, let's face it, could probably be very successful G5 football team.
Oh yeah.
I don't see Colorado beating Nebraska. I don't know why, and I hate it.
John, do you agree? Where are you at?
This game makes me sick overall. I mean,
we're in the same boat over here.
Somehow a Cyclone and a Wildcat are on par with each other tonight. I don't understand that either. But Colorado, Nebraska, we've been hearing these fan bases talk crap about each other throughout the offseason. And while I think the game will be close throughout out, I think Nebraska will ultimately get the bigger plays late in the game. I think just really they got the more trustworthy coach on the sideline when it comes to late game situations. And Matt Rule, we always heard from Matt Rule during his time at Temple and Baylor. It's not always the first year they'll get things going, but it's the second year and the third year they'll eventually get them going. And I saw a lot of bright spots from Nebraska in their first game against UTEP and Dylan Raiola, especially as quarterback as well. So I in Colorado, besides Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, there's not a whole lot over there to be too impressed about at this point. So if I'd have to choose, I'd pick Nebraska, but overall, I want a Meteor to hit Memorial Stadium on Saturday night. And honestly, this game makes me sick. It's even lowering my computer. So I'll be right back. I gotta charge this real quick.
That's 2 votes for the Meteor, so I think we're the majority.
It's so funny hearing takes like that, from around the country. Because, like, to me, like, Colorado, Nebraska, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a rivalry game, whatever. Like, the Meteor game for me is like Texas and Baylor, or Texas and A&M, honestly. That's like, yes, take those fools out. But
any
it's
game with Texas is a Meteor game. What are you talking about?
Yeah. It's just funny to hear, I mean, obviously I know why you are, but it's funny to hear people who are so passionate about hating Nebraska. Like, I don't know. Okay, I got 2 more games for us to kind of speed run through. I don't want to keep you all here too much longer than an hour, but I was saying, hey, alarm bells for Texas Tech. Oh my God, this is the Mike Leach Lovers Bowl here. Texas Tech going up to Wazoo. Washington State a 2-point favorite at 9 at night. Does Texas Tech have a prayer here? I don't think they do it. I don't think Texas Tech can win this game. Washington State has an offense once again, and I don't think Texas Tech can stop anybody. What do y'all think about it?
This is a game to take the over, folks. This is the game this week to take the over of anything in college football, and it is because, again, like, Texas Tech has never been known for their defense, but they've always been known for when they have that flashy offense. I think, quite honestly, this game is just going to score a lot of points. I think, if anything, it might look something like that Arizona game that we witnessed this past weekend, where it's just going to be, going shot for shot. And I don't know, it could be fun, but I really do think Washington State's going to get the better of Tech here. I mean, they just look like a more well-rounded, put-together team. And for sake of just making things simple, Tech's going to have a lot of things to work on, and I don't know if it's necessarily all going to go good for them. I think Washington State's got the edge here pretty strong. I think the 2 is interesting just in its own self.
Yeah. I'm shocked that the line is this low, right?
Yep.
Brownie, what do you think about it?
I also wish for the Meteor to hit during this game. Wazoo is definitely giving me PTSD from Gardner Minshew deciding to make minced meat out of our defense. But honestly, I do think Wazoo has the edge here. It being a 2-point difference on odds right now, like, that is ridiculous. And what's the over-under right now? 65.5 still? 70?
Look it up.
If it's literally below 70, be hammering that over, because I feel like both teams are going to be hitting 70.
This is going to be a 40-some minimum for each.
Yeah, I guarantee you that if, like, I don't watch this game and I wake up the next morning and I see that the total was like 84 to 77, I would be like, okay, yeah, oh yeah, not shocked at all.
65 and a half.
65. That's fair.
Oh,
That's take that all
yeah.
day long.
Slam that over.
That's 32 a pop. Come on.
Both teams are going to score more than 5 touchdowns apiece. Like, I'm sorry, but defense is not the name of the game here. It's going to be like watching somebody play college football 25.
Yeah. John, you think the Red Raiders have a prayer?
Well, I honestly, if you're asking for that prayer in regards to the offense, I mean, this would be the kind of game where what's his name? Mike Leach would be staring from the clouds, and he might just give both teams the opportunity of giving high power octane offenses down in Pullman to the two former teams he coached as well. So there you go. I mean, that's so many ties. I mean, so many iconic ties as well to it as well. I got to go Washington State. Just given Texas Tech's defensive struggles, they gave up 51 points to Abilene Christian. They honestly should have lost the game. Have Abilene Christian have better calls near the end of regulation and overtime as well. Whereas you look at a team like Washington State, they drop a 70 burger on an FCS team. And on top of that, I think this is kind of a little bit of a tryout game, more so for Washington State in terms of kind of putting themselves on a more national stage already than what Oil Crimson is doing on College Game Day. They're going to need some of these big wins to kind of show up their resume here in the long term of things when it comes to realignment. So I think there's going to be a lot of come to Jesus meetings here pretty soon in Pullman, Washington. And I think they're going to get it done over Texas Tech. I think it'll be a close game, though.
Last thought on this one. This game is what the nation outside of the Big 12 thinks the Big 12 still is. Right?
Yeah.
Zero defense.
Very valid. No defense.
That's true.
Yeah, zero defense and scoring. Okay, one last game, and I'm kind of shocked that I'm even wanting to talk about this one, but I'm kind of wondering if the Sun Devils maybe have a little juice. Arizona State hosting Mississippi State. This game is one that I didn't picture intriguing me, but it really intrigues me now. Arizona State almost a touchdown favorite with the 9:30 p.m. tilt against the SEC school. What do y'all think? Did they show you enough against Wyoming to put some faith in the Sun Devils, or is the SEC taking this one?
I don't know. Arizona State is that just – I think out of every single team in the Big 12 this year, they are the biggest wild card. There's a lot of juice given towards that based on what we saw last week. But, I think everybody just as a default expected – exactly what happened in the Pac-12 to translate to the Big 12. And that doesn't usually happen. When you're looking at realignment, when you're looking at how these teams form and change their strategy, you can't expect that, just a team like Arizona State, who did quite honestly struggle against a lot of Pac-12 teams. You can't expect that it's just going to be the exact same situation. This is a completely different conference with a completely different makeup. They've got a lot of new things going for them. I think Arizona State is in a position where they could make some noise. I don't think they're going to be a contender by any means, but I think if everybody's expecting Arizona State to be a bottom 2 or 3 team, Arizona State could be the team that surprises you the most this year and could actually rack up some wins. Should they? No. Can they? Probably not. Might they? It's possible. I don't know. I think there's a possibility that they could get Mississippi State here, but I think I'd still give the edge to Mississippi State, but I think it could be a tight game.
Brownie, take it.
SEC. I am not completely sold on Arizona State. I do think that they have a really good running back. I think he did fairly well against Wyoming, but I'm still not completely convinced on them quite yet. It's a lot of up and downs. Them having Herman for however many years kind of set them back, I personally believe, back to basically square -5. And they're slowly working their way up. But, I mean, Mississippi State looked really, really good. Granted, it's another low-tier opponent, but I can't go against Bulldogs, man. That's just hate. That's a hate crime.
I guess. John, what do you think? And I'll give you my take.
Oh my goodness. Well, honestly, I'm for once I'm going to speak to a contrary of Brownie here. Arizona State. Honestly, Justin brought up like if because Justin didn't bring up his only team as kind of a lesson learned from the Big 12 this week, I would have probably said I'd probably go along the lines of saying that Arizona State was the most impressive team in the Big 12. I mean, they had a very impressive defense for that matter. They scored 2 defensive touchdowns. They prevented Wyoming from crossing midfield in the first half as well. It was a 48-7 win, and given that it was Wyoming had a first-year head coach, it was still a blowout nonetheless against a team that was bowl eligible as well. And on top of that, I think those kind of wins can really juice up a program like Arizona State, where we're kind of down in the dumps at certain points. Now you're getting an SEC team to come into Tempe, to come into Mountain America Stadium, and it's a winnable SEC team as well. Mississippi State isn't a powerhouse like Georgia or Alabama. I think Arizona State's going to pull off a giant upset. I think I'm going to have to go towards the Sun Devils here, just with a home field advantage. And what we've seen so far on the defensive side, I got Arizona State pulling up a giant upset in Tempe. It should be it's a Big 12 after dark game.
Oh, 9:30 p.m. There it is on the screen, baby.
You can't have a day kick out there, buddy. Trust me.
Yes, there will be a pool of goo where the players used to be, right? If you have a day game out there.
It'd be like the Iowa State Baylor game a few years.
I am 100% on the same page as you, John. I love Arizona State's young coach. I think that he has them moving in the right direction. I loved what he had to say during the year that they had the bowl ban, how he was attacking the season and what he was telling his players. You beat a team like Wyoming like that. You're saying it. I don't care if it's a new coach. That's a solid little program up there. That's a solid little Mountain West program. And you don't just go ahead and beat Wyoming 48-7 and not have me raise my eyebrows. I like a lot of what I saw from Arizona State. And yes, they're going to be hyped up for this game. You're hosting an SEC opponent that's a very mid to low tier SEC opponent. It's a winnable game in the middle of the night. This is not an easy situation for Mississippi State to walk into. And also, it's a little bit of the Cincinnati vibes here. There's not a whole lot of Big 12 games that I see are winnable for Arizona State. Maybe BYU, maybe Texas Tech at this point. So this is one where, we have an opportunity to make a statement in this game. So we got to do it. I think Arizona State wins this game. I think the Mississippi State covers, but I think Arizona State pulls out the big win. I'm absolutely with you there. Okay, so there we have it. A very solid show, another one in the books. Gentlemen, please go around the horn, tell the people where they can find you, where they can listen to you, all the good things, plug your stuff.
Who wants to go first? I guess I'll go first. So again, Justin Howes of at Viva La Cats Pod. There goes the helmet.
Yeah.
You can find us at Viva La Cats Pod on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram as well. We're also on TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, we are there. So make sure to check out our show. We do weekly episodes, and as well, we have brought back our weekly Super Sims, which are fun. So if you're looking to see how the Bearcats might perform, we've got a little CFB 25 action for you each week. That's fun. We as well do a weekly bet slip, so you can keep your eyes out for that. But for myself and Steve, thanks for having us on, Clint.
Yeah, I always love having the Cats Pod on. Go ahead, Brownie.
You can typically find me out on Twitter trolling fan bases, mostly the Wildcats during Farmageddon. It's at Hoosier Burner. You can also find me on Wide Right Natty Light's website, Wide Right Natty Light. Or you could follow our main Twitter account that I sometimes have smart ideas on, and that's at Wide RT Natty LT. Come check us out. I actually have a couple of articles that are going to be posting tomorrow on who to watch for the Cyhawk game.
Right, Natty Light, legendary. Go ahead, John, take it away.
Well, you guys can follow me, John Grove02 on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it. I also have a podcast that's called the Cat Attack Podcast on Twitter as well. You guys can follow Cat Attack Pod for all the updates and notifications. We'll be going live every Thursday night on Wildcat 91.9 FM. So if you're around the Manhattan area, it's definitely a fun show to tune into. You can also listen to several past shows on Spotify as well. Cat Attack on Spotify as well. Clint, it was an absolute blast. Hope to tag along again on one of these Tuesday nights.
Yes, absolutely. Always love having you guys on. And Brownie, it's
Armageddon
good to have you on
weekend.
for the first time.
There you go.
Y'all, follow the channel, subscribe to the channel at Big 12 Voice of College Football. There it is, crawling across the bottom of the screen. We are crawling our way to 1,000 subscribers. Help us get there. Grow the show. Tell your friends about it, okay? It's all Big 12 all the time, and we love what we do here. Also, follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55. There it is. A lot of, similar trolling and just bemoaning or at times celebrating things that TCU is doing. And subscribe to my personal YouTube channel at Clint Foster Comedy. This is my active season, man. A lot going on. You're going to want to be a part of it. So, until next time, man, I love you. I hope that your team wins, okay? And go Big 12. We'll see you around.